Hello, everybody. All right, today is Friday, September the 5th, 2025. Um, I welcome both my YouTube and my Rumble viewers. Hopefully, everybody's had a good week. Everybody's getting ready for the weekend. Um, we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started. Um, hopefully, as I said, everybody's having a good weekend. Um, I myself finished off watching cartoons that came out in September 1940 earlier today. Watched Popeye, among those, including Popeye cartoon Popeye Meets William Tell, as well as I think this was the third Indie Panda cartoon, Crazy House, um, calling Doctor Porky, among others. So quite a unique, kind of an interesting selection of cartoons. Anyways, friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Let's see now. All right, just trying to here. All right. So, anyways, let's see where are we at on time here. All right. So, okay. So, and we have three people here now. We're at 3 minutes here, so I guess I'll talk about what's on tap for minutes. So, I got a couple of articles I'm going to go over. Um, Basically, they're both involved, kind of involving, voice actors, anime and cartoons. The first article we're going to be looking at is from Bounding in the Comics, where the English voice actors of Josh Martin, Damian Clark, and Kyle Hebert reunite for a Dragon Ball Z fan panel at Expo Chicago 2025. Somebody did a little editing boo boo there, twisting the words around a little bit. Think it should have been fan panel and Chicago Expo. So then, of course, we're also going to go over to MeTV Tunes, and there's going to be a little profile piece, find out how and why Lucille Bliss, who, of course, most famously is the voice of Smurfette from the 80s Smurfs cartoon, ended up not winning the role of Elroy Jetson. So I guess she auditioned for it at one point, did not get it. So, plus, of course, they'll have the wrestling wrap up, get all caught up on last night's live Impact, and Ring of Honor shows. Look ahead to tonight. I believe Ring of Honor has a YouTube special on tonight, so we'll be looking at that. We'll be looking ahead to WWE WWE SmackDown as more stuff's coming out ready for as they march towards WrestleMania, and then we'll look ahead to tomorrow night's AEW Collision. Then we'll wrap things up, of course, with this day in each history. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started then? Well, we'll get started with this first article. All right, so here we go with the first article of the evening here. English voice actors Josh Martin, Damian Clark, and Kyle Bear reunite for a Dragon Ball Z fan panel at Chicago Expo 2025. Okay, so just to remind everybody, of course, Josh Martin provided the English voice of Boo in Dragon Ball Z. Damian was Cell. And Kyle there was Gohan. So just a reminder there. Article by Dante Eriks published yesterday. Oh, all right. Terrorizing the moderator. Oh. All right. So, while the attendance in theater number 3 didn't even come close to reaching 9,000, let alone over, fans still gave off enough energy to make 3 spirit bombs when voice actors Josh Martin, Damian Clark, and Kyle Bear landed on stage for a special Dragon Ball Z Go Over 9,000, smaller quotes, panel during the nocturnal extravaganza Anime After Dark at Fan Expo Chicago 2025. I guess that is the name of the event there. Josh Martin provides the English voice for Majin Buu. Damian Clark is the voice of Cell, and Kyle Bear plays adult Gohan. When the crowd finally settled down, the 3 panelists introduced themselves, and then they reminded everyone of their respective roles on the series. After they finished, Damian Clark decided to get something off his chest that has apparently been absorbing him for quite some time. Absorbing him? Oh boy. Quote, first off, unquote, the voice of Cell began, quote, I want it known for the record that I hate Gohan, especially the little version of him, unquote. In character. Letting the awkward moment pass, the first question was directed at Josh Martin and how he landed the part of the portly pink nightmare. Aside from DBZ, Martin has done voice work for Fire Force, Dr. Stone, Fruits Basket, My Hero Academia, and Attack on Titan. But it all started with that candy bar loving Boo. Quote, this was the first big voice acting job I ever had, unquote, Martin confided. Quote, I didn't audition for Boo. I got discovered by Mr. Chris Sabat. I performed with Chris Rager and Mike McFarland. So Chris Sabat, of course, did a number of voices on the Dragon Ball franchise, including, of course, Yamcha. Yamcha. Kami. Let's see. I think he was Kami. Trying to think. Piccolo, among others. Chris Rager, was Mr. Satan, and Mike McFarlane, of course, was provided the voice of Master Roshi. And we ran a comedy troupe together. We performed for years when then Mike came to rehearsal one day, told us about this part on Dragon Ball Z. They, brackets here, Rager and Mike, again, another typo there, yes, invited Sabbath to our show where I was doing a character called the Pillsbury Homeboy, in parentheses, in small parentheses there. And Sabbath came up to me after the show. He was like, I think I found the voice of Majin Buu, unquote. Among with playing the adult son of Goku, Kyle Hebert was also the narrator on Dragon Ball Z, and in parentheses, weirdly enough, the voice of Gohan's grandfather, Ox King. Mm-hmm. Hebert's voice can also be found on other great animes like Bleach. Bleach. I can't remember. One Piece, Naruto Shippuden. Let's see. Yeah, it's been a while since I've watched some of these. So, Soul Eater, Full Metal Alchemist. He was Warrant Officer Fallman in the Full Metal Alchemist series. Brotherhood, Kill la Kill, Hunter x Hunter, One Punch Man, and many more. When asked if any of the three actors were familiar with the show before getting the job, Hebert had the most satisfactory answer of them all. He said, quote, in the late 90s, the Canadian dub series started airing on independent stations. Then it switched over to Cartoon Network. I was already a fan of it because of that. So yeah, so prior to Funimation getting it in the early 2000s, let's see, I believe initially, actually Ocean Studios up in Vancouver had been doing some of it. And I think they even continued it for the Canadian market even after Funimation got it. So, let's see. Then I was on Radio Disney where I heard about auditions. Then I went in and tried out. The very first stuff I did was on the Bardock special, just unnamed characters like Man B or Alien C or whatever. I totally did know how big Dragon Ball was, so getting it was a dream come true. I've always wanted to do voice acting, animation, and getting to be a part of this was a 1-2 punch right there, unquote. Damian Clark, who is obviously still bitter about Gohan killing Cell, made a snide comment when Hebert finished. Quote, I'll give you a 1-2 punch, unquote. Now, of course, Clark, aside from Cell, he also was the younger Toguro brother in Yu Yu Hakusho as well. He provided the voice of the younger Toguro brother in Yu Yu Hakusho. So that's when a fan tried consoling Clark by reminding him that Cell was technically only 6 years of age when he was defeated by the 11-year-old Gohan. And that's why the young Saiyan had the advantage in their epic fight. To which he responded in his perfect Cell voice, quote, you're a real smart ass, boy. You know that? Nobody likes a smart ass except when it's me. Oh boy, that's funny. Since he now had everyone's attention, Damian Clark talked about his role as the narcissistic, diabolical android from Dr. Jiro's secret laboratory. Just like the other two, he has done voice work for numerous anime shows. But it's safe to say that more people recognize him as Handsome Jack from Borderlands 2 and 3. He told fans of just how unforgiving his line of work can be, and that the showrunners settle for nothing less than total perfection. Quote, "Imperfect Cell was a little touch and go for a while," unquote, Clark confessed. Quote, "But it was Dale Wilson who told me this." Now told me this. The guy who did the voice of Cell in Vancouver. Yes, the late great Dale Wilson, Canadian voice actor based out of Vancouver. Of course, did Cell for the Ocean dub of Dragon Ball, but also, of course, one of his other more probably well-known roles as Principal Kelly in X-Men Evolution back in 2001. When I first started out, quote, make sure you can actually do the voice. Just because you can do the voice doesn't mean you can keep doing it for 3 or 4 hours, then do it again the next day and the next day. They will fire you if you can't keep it up, unquote. Mm-hmm. If there's one thing most fandoms have in common, it's the need to have surprises spoiled for them. Seeing as how Frieza can be resurrected 100 times, and that has people asking if they'll ever see another Cell games in the future, especially since Clark somewhat reprised the role as the rampaging Cell Max in the full-length feature Dragon Ball Superhero. Ian James Corlett right there, who is, of course, the Canadian voice for Goku. Quote, let's put it this way, unquote, Clark said. Quote, when I was recording for Cell Max, they wouldn't let me see the script until I got to the studio. If the DBZ Super movie has taught me anything, it's that nobody knows what will happen with Cell, unquote. One of the last questions asked was what the actors would like to change about their characters if they were given complete control and a time machine. Josh Martin was quick to say that he wished Boo had more dialogue in the episodes with Damian Clark, while Damian Clark would have rather had Cell lose to someone else other than a child. But Kyle Bear answered with something that most fans have been screaming about for the past 20 years and earned him a perfectly wicked laugh from Cell. Quote, Gohan shouldn't have been absorbed, unquote, Bear said. Quote, and then nerfed for 2 decades. And that's the end of that article. Done with that article. So, and again, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. I'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, as we now prepare to move on to the next article here, that head over to MeTV Tunes. So this is the other article we're going to do tonight. How Lucille Bliss, the voice of Smurfette, lost the role of Elroy Jetson. Did Bliss belong in Orbit City, or was Smurf Village her true home? Article published September 4th, which was yesterday, by me, TV Toon staff. So let's take a look at this little quickie here. When you're the voice of Smurfette, you're basically cartoon royalty. But for voice actress Lucille Bliss, wasn't a smooth ride to the top of Smurf Village. Bliss spent 15 years auditioning for Hanna-Barbera, and those 15 years were filled with cartoons that didn't air and opportunities that never panned out. One of those opportunities was playing a little boy named Elroy Jetson. Now, mind you, just to remind everybody, it is a common practice for women to actually take on the roles of prepubescent boys in most animated, situations. Whether that, of course, be in cartoons or anime or what have you. Hanna-Barbera, for what it's worth, liked Bliss, but it was hard to cast her raspy voice in girl roles like Betty Rubble or Penelope Pitstop. They invited her to try something different audition for Elroy, and she got the part. In an interview with Television Academy, Bliss said, quote, "Everything was going wonderful. They loved me," unquote. A director told her, quote, "They think you're a real boy, Lucille," unquote. So how she lost her, okay. That's interesting thus far. Is this Pinocchio? No. The advertising executives on Madison Avenue wanted Elroy to be voiced by a real little boy. Hanna-Barbera wanted Lucille Bliss. Without Bliss's knowledge, Hanna-Barbera was sent the tape. Without Bliss's knowledge, Hanna-Barbera had sent the tape with her voicing Elroy and credited her as Little Lou Bliss to appease Madison Avenue. The admin were delighted with Little Lou Bliss and wrote letters praising, quote, "the apple-cheeked little 6-year-old boy," unquote. Bliss was happy with her performance, but there was a catch. She was told, quote, "You must never, ever, ever divulge your name. You'll lose your job," unquote. She agreed, promising never to tell anyone, not even her best friend. This deceit agreement may have worked if it had not been for Bliss's agents, who said, quote, "What the hell is this Little Lou Bliss crap? You've made your name as Lucille Bliss. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are they doing to you? Calling you Little Lou Bliss? He's going to go on to become big and famous, and it's you. That can't go on," unquote. So her agents were the ones who, and again, her agents had a good point there. I mean, the problem of deceit, right? The problem with deceit is that you're eventually going to get caught. You can't lie forever. Eventually, you're going to get caught. So. Ain't that to it? Yeah, well, I'm doing fine. I hope if you haven't already, if you can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. All right. So, anyways, we continue on here. Pleading with her agent, Bliss asked him to leave it alone, or she would lose her job. Lose the job. She was willing to keep it a secret. Hanna Barbera was willing to keep it a secret. She wanted to work and be a lead on the series, but her agent was outraged by the situation. Her agent went to Hanna Barbera demanding more money and her real name to be credited. So now her agent is doing his job. He's basically, you know, he's representing her best interest. He felt that her best interest was for her to be credited and for her to be respected, not to have her be forced to hide behind this, deceit. Now, of course, what would eventually happen? Well, let's finish the article, then I'll get into that. At least the aftermath. Um, Quote, I got the pink slip 2 weeks later, unquote, said Bliss. Quote, and it broke my heart. I went to pieces. I really did. You can take just so many disappointments in one career. Of course, my disappointments turned out good, but still, unquote. While her agent may have been looking out for her career longevity, this was the final straw for Bliss. She fired the agent who ruined the Jetsons for her. While she couldn't be Elroy, the experience helped Bliss build up courage and resilience that she'd one day use to voice Smurfette. Now, of course, after Lucille Bliss was let go from the role, they replaced her with the late great Dawes Butler. Dawes Butler, you guys remember, is the guy who, of course, voiced a number of Hanna-Barbera characters, including Yogi Bear. He basically voiced just Yogi Bear, Snagglepuss, Huckleberry Hound, um, quite a few there. So, watch the Smurfs on MeTV Tunes Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 Central, 2 Pacific. All right, let's see what time. Okay, so we're all right. Let me at least look around, see if there's maybe something else we can still need to. Let me see if there's at least another shorty I can find. Hmm. Let me see now. I knew that was coming, but anyways. Again, and if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Let's see now. Excuse me a moment. I do need to go off camera here for a quick moment. I'll be right back, but I'll put some music on while I'm gone. All right, I'm back. So now what we're going to do, of course, is we're going to go ahead and move on to wrestling wrap up here. So we're going to, of course, take a look back at last night's, of course, Impact and Ring of Honor. Look ahead to tonight's SmackDown, as well as the special Ring of Honor YouTube special, and then look ahead to tomorrow night's AW SmackDown, as of course all three, basically WWE building towards WrestlePalooza on the 20th. AEW building towards All Out on the 20th in Toronto, and then West Bull is in Indianapolis, and then TNA is building towards Victory Road on the 26th. I believe that's going to be in Edmonton. So first off, let's get right. Let's go to last night's. Impact, a live edition of Impact last night. On last night's live edition of Impact. Let's see. From the Armory in Minneapolis, Minnesota, there are 3 matches on the show in which Frank Kazarian defeated Matt Cardona in a singles match. Indy Hart in a number 1 contendership triple threat match to determine the next challenger to Ash Vial against his TNA Knockouts World Title. Indy Hartwell defeated Danny Luna and Jody Threat. And in the main event, on a mixed 6-person tag match, Mara Sade teamed with TNA World Champions Jeff and Matt Hardy, the Hardys, to defeat the Order of 4 trio of Tasha Steelz and the great hands of Jason Hotch and John Skyler. So that's all that went down on I believe Impact. Let me just check something here for that. Of course, Tom Hannafin and Matthew Rainwalt were on commentary for that. Let me just see here. I believe they might have signed the Bound for Glory. I think they might have announced that Trick Williams will be. So yeah, they did add a couple matches. So for Bound for Glory coming up in October, you have with Indy Hartwell winning the triple threat match last night for the number 1 contendership. She'll get that shot at Bound for Glory against Ash by Elegance. In a non-title tag team match, TNA World Tag Team Champions, the Hardys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, will be taking on Team 3D, Bully Ray and Devon one last time in their storied rivalry. And also announced last night, Trick Williams will defend the TNA World title against Mike Santana, in which Williams had been trying to get out of having to defend it against him, by putting in the contract that he doesn't have to defend. He has 50 days to defend the title in between, which is more than what was traditionally held with 30 days. Well, the 50 days is going to be up by Bound for Glory. Now, of course, before we get to Bound for Glory, which is coming up on October 12th from the Songus Center at UMass Lowell. The next actual pay-per-view prior to that will be Victory Road coming up from Edmonton, Alberta on September 26th. So they're only going to have like 2 weeks to build towards Bound for Glory from Victory Road. Victory Road will be held at the Edmonton Expo Center on 25th, and Ash by Elegance will be defending the world title against Masha Slamovich at that event. Now, of course, if Masha Slamovich defeats Ash by Elegance, then she will, of course, move on to defend the title probably against Indy Hartwell. So you got some big stuff coming up from TNA. Now with all that, let's now get ready to move on to look back at last night's Ring of Honor Honor Club. So on last night's Ring of Honor Club from the from the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the old ECW arena, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. The opening match saw, in a non-title match, Ring of Honor Women's World Champion Athena defeat Dayami. The tag team calling themselves now the Swirl of Blake Christian and Lee Johnson defeated Joe Alonzo and Thomas Hayne. Wheeler Yuta of the Death Riders defeated John Silver of Dark Order. Of course, Wheeler Yuta had Marina Shafir in his corner. The 2-on-1 handicap match, Lance Archer of Don Callis family defeated Adam and Marcus King brothers. The Spanish Announce Project of Angelico and Serpentico defeated Philly Collins and Marino Tanagila. Katsuya Shibata defeated Jordan Oliver in a singles match. And the main event saw, in a tag team match, conglomeration deal of Hologram and Tomohiro Ishii. Tomohiro Ishii, of course, the current strong openweight champion, defeating the premier athletes of Arya Davari and Tony Nese. So now we segue into, of course, tonight's Ring of Honor special episode on YouTube, also coming from the 2300 Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. So set for tonight, in 6-man tag action, AR Fox teams with The Kingdom, Mike Bennett and Matt Taven, take on the Frat House of Griff Garrison, Jack Jameson, and Cole Carter. In a tag team match, Spanish Announce Project of Angelico and Serpentico take on premier athletes with Mark Sterling in their corner, Arya Davari and Tony Nese. You have 2 Pure Rules women's matches, as Deonna Purrazzo will be taking on Rachel Ellering, and Ashley Vox will be taking on Trisha Dora. Johnny TV of MMM TV, with, of course, Eminem, Mansoor, and Mason Madden, and Ty Valkyrie in his corner, taking on Alex Zane. The Beast Mordos is set to take on Jordan Oliver. Beef and LSG take on Lance Archer and H. Sarah of the Don Callis family. Josh Woods makes his long-awaited return to take on Matt Mako. Aaron Solo takes on Hologram, and then the main event in a world title proving ground match, Bandito will try to fend off the challenge of the Swirl's Lee Johnson, who will have, of course, Blake Christian in his corner. So that's what we got for tonight, for that special tonight. Now, looking ahead to tonight's WWE SmackDown. Get the information there. Now, tonight's SmackDown will be coming from the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois. With that being said, CM Punk, it said that CM Punk will be on the event tonight, and this will probably be, also was reported today that this will most likely be John Cena's last appearance on SmackDown before he retires. They'll have Michael Cole and Corey Graves on commentary. the one match that's signed thus far, Sami Zayn, who last week, of course, won the United States title from Solo Sikoa, will be defending the title against John Cena. So it's also rumored that Brock Lesnar will possibly make an appearance tonight, and AJ Lee may be making her return finally tonight. So those are things that probably want to be looking out for. Now, get ready to move ahead to look ahead to tomorrow night's Collision. Tomorrow night's Collision. Tomorrow night's Collision, which of course will also be coming from the 2300 arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, will air on TNT. FTR of Dax Harwood, Cash Wheeler with Stokely in their corner. We're taking on the team of Tommy Billington and Adam Priest. For those of you who don't know, Tommy Billington, I believe, is the nephew of the Dynamite Kid. Let me just see here. They just haven't used him in a while here. Yeah, he's the nephew of the Dynamite Kid. Then Mark Briscoe is set to take on Don Callis family member, the Alpha Konosuke Takeshita. Takeshita coming off of a successful tour of Japan, where he won the G1. Former AEW World, 4-time AEW World Champion John Moxley takes on 2-time Pure Champion Daniel Garcia. And in the main event, in an 8-woman tag team match, Megan Bayne teams with the Triangle of Madness of Sky Blue, Julia Hart, and Tekla take on the team of Harley Cameron, current interim Ring of Honor World Television Champion Mina Shirakawa, former TBS champion Chris Statlander, and current AEW World Champion Tony Storm. Now, of course, we do have some, Mina Shirakawa and Tekla do have some history coming from Stardom. So this is promising. And of course, Tony Storm has also had, past dealings with, Megan Bayne, of course. But a lot to look forward to on tomorrow night's Collision. All right, so with that being said, that's all I got for the wrestling wrap-up. So now what we're going to do is, of course, with today being Friday, September the 5th, 2025, why don't we go ahead and get ready to take a look back at this day in Neat's history. History! 2002, 2010, 1995, and 2020. All right. So the first thing we're going to look at, we're going to take a trip back 30 years ago today. And on this date, 30 years ago today, back in 1995, let me pull it up here. On this date in the year 1995, I gotta hold on a second. Signal's kind of going out on me a little bit there. Okay, so we're good now. Looks like. All right. So on this day in the year 1995, known here in the States as the Mr. Men Show, Marino Productions, Mr. Men and Little Miss, premiered on this date back in. It initially, of course, premiered in France on France 3, and in the United Kingdom, it would eventually air on Nickelodeon. But on this date, 30 years ago today, show we know of here in the States is the Mr. Men show. Mr. Men and Little Miss premiered on this date 30 years ago. All right, so with that, moving on to the next piece in each history as we move ahead to the year 2002. On this date in the year 2002, as I find that, which of course was 23 years ago today. On this date, 23 years ago today, the 90th issue of Oh My Goddess from Dark Horse's Dark Horse manga imprint went on sale on this date back in 2002. It sold for $350, 40 pages. Dark Horse, of course, was known for adapting Japanese manga into comic books. So on this date back in 2002, 23 years ago, the 90th issue of Oh My Goddess and Dark Horse's Dark Horse manga imprint went on sale on this date back in 2002. Now moving ahead to the year 2010, 15 years ago today. On this date, 15 years ago today, TNA would have its No Surrender pay-per-view on this date back in 2010 from the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. Of course, the main event of the show saw Mr. Anderson defeat D'Angelo De Niro to advance to the finals of the TNA World Heavyweight Championship Tournament. Kurt Angle and Jeff Hardy fought to a no contest in the semifinals of the tournament. If Angle loses, he will retire from wrestling. AJ Styles defeated Tommy Dreamer in an I Quit match. Jeff Jarrett and Samoa Joe defeated Sting and Kevin Nash. Abyss defeated Rhino in a Falls Count Anywheres match. You have Douglas Williams defeated Sabu to retain the TNA X Division title. And in a match for the TNA World Tag Team Championship, the Motor City Machine Guns, Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley, defeated Generation Me to retain the you just check something here because that's okay. So that, yeah, known as Generation Me in TNA, we're talking, of course, about the Young Bucks. Generation Me fell short to the Motor City Machine Guns for the TNA World Tag Team Championships. All right. So, anyways, getting ready to move on to the next piece of the final piece in each history tonight. We move ahead to the year 2020, 5 years ago today. On this date, 5 years ago today. Date 5 years ago today. The David Productions Cells at Work, the movie, premiered in theaters on this date back in 2020. So, Cells at Work, the movie, premiered on this date in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2020. All right, so with that being said, I thank everybody for being here tonight. We'll be back here Sunday with the historical comic retrospect. My guest, of course, will be Apex from Apex Comics. We'll be looking back at comics that went on sale in June of 1940 and this week our focus will be on books that went on sale from Fox Feature Syndicate. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight, and I hope to see everybody back here on Sunday. Bye.